Okay, Spacey, let's think. We are reviewing another game, and this time it's going to be iconic. It's going to be loved, one which will not make me unfavored by the algorithm. So, let's pick a game now. Oh, dang it. Well, gonna make it work, it seems. Looks like I'm gonna be stuck in this obscurity pile for a long, long time. Sup guys, Spacey here, and today we return to the world of weird shovelware PS2 games for probably the 100th time now. This time, we have a game called Kart Kings, which is another really odd title in the PS2 library, but odder than most of the others. But what makes it different from stuff like Phoenix Games, you may be asking? Well, there's a few things actually. First is the fact that this is a crossover game. Yes, really. The game crosses over many Indian comic characters into the game, including, and I hope I pronounce these right, The Adventures of Shakiri, Shambu, Saprini's Adventure, and Tatiri the Martini. Yeah, never heard of them? I was the same way as well, and that's because none of these series have any notoriety outside of India, which is where they all originated from. Which leads me to a second reason, which this game being an Indian exclusive. I guess that makes sense since this game would have little sales in the rest of Europe, let alone North America and or Japan. And if that ain't enough, the third reason is that this game came out in 2011. Yes, it came that late into the system's life. And this was after titles like Toy Story 3, just for reference. The game also saw a port to the PSP as well, but that system was also dead by the time 2011 rolled around, at least in North America and Europe. So overall, not the best decision out there. Or maybe it was? I mean, the comment section on the official trailer says that many people played this, so it must have sold at least somewhat decently. But who would publish this game? I mean, this game is a 2011 PS2 game after all, so it probably must be some weird obscure publisher, right? Well, that gets me on to the third reason, and that's that Sony Computer Entertainment Europe was the one who published this. Yes, Sony published it, and they gave it a pretty good marketing campaign as well. This isn't the most weird thing the Sony European team has done in terms of publishing on PS2, but it's still up there as some of the strangest Sony has ever done with a PS2. But what developer did Sony get to develop this game, you may be asking? No, Sony didn't get any of their teams to work on this silly goose, but instead they got a small studio out of India known as Game Sharta Solutions, who, outside of this title, have only made casual fare for WiiWare, PSP Minis, and iOS/Android devices, with their last upload from their channel being from 2014, showing that they most likely have closed down at this point. Yeah, it really says a lot when this is their most prominent title, and the fact the studio only lasted a few years before shutting down. But let's not judge this game based off how shady the publisher may have been, and get onto reviewing the game, just to see how weird it is. But who knows, maybe it might be underrated gem, but I highly doubt that. With the most kart racers, usually either have no plot whatsoever, or lots of lore in the story mode. Despite this game being a crossover, with some potential for lore, the furthest the game goes is saying, "Go race to India, lol." Not a bad thing, but slightly disappointing, especially since this is a crossover. But still, racing around country, especially one that's more obscure, is cool, even if it's a bit on the bland side. But let's get to that when we talk about the graphics. So yeah, nothing really else to say since it's a kart racer with no plot. It's kinda standard for the plots to be minimal or non-existent. And honestly, I'm kinda glad there is no plot, so I don't have to read 100 Wikipedia articles to understand the plot. Okay, so you know Montlu Patlu? You know, that one show that had a bunch of memes for a while, and also originated from the same country as Kart Kings? Yeah, imagine that, but it's the cutting potato meme, and you're the one cutting the potato. Yeah, that's how I'd easily describe the aesthetics of this game, especially with the characters, since they all look like unpolished, poorly peeled potatoes. Sure, the characters emote occasionally, and their animations are not too bad for a small production, but they still have lots of jank, likely due to the budget being low for the title. And the PS2 version doesn't even have any widescreen or 480p in 2011, making it for even more janky and crusty looking visuals. Which really confuses me, seeing as by 2011 everyone had HD TVs, even the lower class. The same unpolished feel also goes to the environments as well, and to give them credit, these environments do look like the places in India, so they did capture that, but they still have lots of crust and bad polygons, alongside the water effects looking pretty bad for PS2 standards, being more comparable to N64 games, especially with the amount of pop-in the game has, which really reminds me of PS1 titles, which have lots of fog and pop-in in them. The environments also feel extremely empty and plain as well, with nothing really going on in them, and the game having basically no life whatsoever outside of like 1 or 2 instances. Nothing really stands out in this game, and they all just blend together like a giant husk. Like seriously, I could take 2 shots from the game, and outside of 1 to 2 details, they all look the same. Same goes for the music as well. Sure, it's a lot more produced and less cheap than stuff like Phoenix Games, but it still has that generic FL Studio feel, and there's almost no memorable tracks in the game at all. And honestly, this is the most painfully generic PS2 game of all time. It doesn't even have any ironic value like the Phoenix Games do. Sure, I could give the game a little bit of a pass since this is from a smaller team, but the game still has a bland, rushed, crunched feeling to it, which honestly makes the game look very crappy. The gameplay of Kart Kings is, of course, a kart racer with several modes and options. In the main menu, we have 4 options for racing: Racing Festival, Quick Race, Time Trial, and Bash On. Racing Festival is the main campaign where you'll unlock stuff like tracks. Quick Race and Time Trial are self-explanatory, and Bash On is a mini-game where you bash monkeys to earn points. You can actually earn enough points to earn comics as well, so at least it gave the mini-game some worth, and offers a good way of viewing the origins of the characters. Returning to the menu now, we get to select our character, our bowl, and cart. It's really cool that we have some level of customization here, and they all have different stats as well, just like in Mario Kart 7, which released the same year funnily enough. Though this does have the flaw of no stats showing, so you have no idea how your gear affects your build. Not that it's bad of a flaw, but it's gonna compound other flaws later on, so make sure to look out for that. But now that we've selected our gear, we now head to the track selection with 12 tracks to choose from. Not that bad for kart racing standards, since many earlier Mario Kart games and other clones have similar track counts. But now that we've selected our track, it's off to the races, and the game plays like any other kart racer like Mario Kart, but with some changes. First is the fact that in order to accelerate, you have to mash the accelerate button in order to go fast. Not much of a difference, but if you keep mashing the X button, you get to go faster than if you're holding the X button. And mastering both of the X button mashing and the holding is a part of the gameplay that you need to master. Second is the fact that you get to see what items you'll be getting, making for more strategy. Though it's more akin to something like Bomberman Kart rather than Diddy Kong Racing or LEGO Racers, as there's no upgrades for the items themselves, and they all just stay static. Finally, there's a lock-on system where you can lock onto the opponents in order to hit them. This is a required system in order to hit the opponents in the game. Solid changes, right? Well, let me tell you what's wrong with the game, and I'll show you how those flaws really compound with the changes. First off, this game tends to glitch sometimes. Sure, it doesn't happen often, but I can recall multiple times where I fell through the walls, and it tends to be really annoying when that happens. I don't even know what causes the break a lot of the time. Maybe I'm just moving too fast for the game? I don't know, it's too hard to determine what went wrong. Second is the fact that the items are hella unbalanced. Now, when a game uses the Diddy Kong Racing style of items, they tend to be similar in power level or have upgrades to them. But in Kart Kings, they use the Mario Kart system of items, with wildly different power levels. So sometimes you get useless items like wheat. Wait, wheat? Oh, that explains it. Or you could just get the Bull Rockets, which is the Kart King's equivalent to the Bullet Bill, all in the same place, which makes the game super broken, and sometimes downright unfair. What doesn't help is the fact that if you don't have a shield or are not fast enough, you will always get hit by the items, which is super duper annoying. There isn't even any way to dodge the projectiles. All you have to do is just pray that the items don't take you off the track, which, with stuff like the chili pepper, you'll almost always be thrown off. Mostly due to the power-up making you turn without any way to recover. Now, some of you will be seeing these issues and you'll be like, just play well. And at first, this seems true, but there is one thing that breaks this game into two pieces. There is no drift. Yes, you heard me right. A kart racer and an arcade racing staple are not here. And these tracks aren't designed like sim racer tracks where they have ample room to turn or otherwise have more skill-based elements. A lot of the time, the only way you can make a turn is if you completely and utterly brake. And by the time you cross it, the AI will mostly be able to pass you. This makes characters with low turning basically useless if you want to win these tracks, which sadly I had to pick a character with a low turning stat, so it made it a lot harder to win certain races. Though with enough memorization and some skill, you're sure to get past the vast majority of these tracks. Except for two of them, which in that case I'll talk about them later. Now though, let's talk about Kart King's worst flaw, and one that does plague many racers, though not to the extent that this game has it. Rubber Band AI. Like most bad Rubber Band AI, the AI in this game tends to pull up randomly, and the AI never lets you off your tail. So that means you get to never really have a lead at all, which makes for very little mistakes being able to be made. And with these controls, well, let's just say it's kind of hard to do any perfect runs on these tracks. Some more so, some less so, but it's still a constant problem. But there is this extra problem as well, which makes the game a whole lot harder, and I do mean a hell, a billion times harder. And that's the fact that the AI never slows down to let you win. Seriously, they're ruthless with their goddamn speed. If you make one or two mistakes, you're basically out of the race for first place, which, knowing how strict this game can get sometimes with its placements, can make the game super duper hard. And these two tracks I'm going to mention now are the antithesis to my claims. First is Tea Time, a track based off the tea farms in India. And if you ever want some extremely janky collision alongside near impossible turns, alongside some very janky mechanics, this is the track for you. And this track is also shit for AMs as well, since a lot of the AMs are placed in such inconvenient places, which is overall the cherry on top for this very shit track. It took a long time to beat it. I thought this game was going to take like a few hours, but no. It took a lot of hours in order to beat this singular track. And this isn't a one-time occurrence either, as we will show in my second example. The second example being Kush Mountain, the final track of the game. Unlike any of the other levels in the game, this is a rally stage, like the Rainbow Road stages in the Mario Kart games, or, more accurately and more recently, Mount Wario for Mario Kart 8. And it seriously feels like this game didn't take into account that this is a rally stage. Not only does it have most of the janky items you see throughout the races with super duper sharp turns and this one obstacle of crystal which tends to be very, very inconsistent, but the AI is downright ruthless in this stage, going super duper fast almost every single time, which when you have to make a super sharp turn or you've gotten hit by an item is very detrimental. It especially applies to the last part of the stage where you're going down a straightaway, since the AI doesn't seem to take any consideration for your life at all, so thus you manage to lose the race almost every single time. Sure, I did manage to beat it once, but that was purely luck based. But what do you get once you beat it? What special reward do you get once you beat the final track? You get a fucking PNG. Yes, a fucking PNG. Now these PNG items are pretty common in the game, you get them almost every single time you win a track, but at the very least with the other times you get a PNG, you at the very least also get something else with it. Mostly a character, a bull, or a cart. But here, just a PNG. You basically unlocked everything at that point before you completed the final stage, so beating this final stage is essentially useless if you want to just beat everything and get 100%. Which, I mean, why would you get 100% in this game, but that's another question for another day. Especially since this game's achievement, yes, there's achievements like Xbox Live and PSN, but it's on PS2 and PSP, don't work all too well. I tried earning one during one of the circuit races, but I didn't get it. Not sure if the criteria is very specific or not, but I don't really think it's worth it to go after these, considering the fact I don't want to waste any more time on this game, but I guess they're there for those who really want it, which, once again, I really don't see how anyone will want these. Back on topic though, and yeah, could you really tell that the gameplay of this game really frustrated me? It's such a broken mess, and it very much sucks to play. It takes any and all value out of the game, and it really makes this game even less worth it than it was on the outset. And while I know my footage looks like a grandma trying to beat Mario Kart with his son, it really is as bad as it looks. Like, seriously, a lot of these things are very frustrating. So yeah, let's just end this before I smash my head on my desk. Man, that was one hell of a game. Kart Kings is a game that, while not the worst in terms of its presentation, though it's so incredibly sloppy, boring, and very basic, it still sucks as a game more so due to its unbalanced items and clunky game feel. I guess it was a good idea for Game Sharda Solutions to stay out of the more hardcore side of the gaming industry after this game, seeing as they made a very shit product here, but I guess even that couldn't save them from going bankrupt 3 years later. Back on the game itself, on my ranking scale, I'll give the game a 3.5 out of 10 since the game doesn't go beyond novelty for people interested in weird regional exclusives and late life releases, and it isn't even a good multiplayer title either. I would rather stick with other kart racers on PS2 and other platforms as this game rots away to obscurity, which honestly is the fate I feel like this game deserves. Sup guys, Spacey here, and if you enjoyed the review and want more content out of me, go and sub to this channel and my other channels as well, along with following my Twitter where I not only give updates and retweet funnies, but I will also give you art, alongside new grants at Pillow Fort. I also have a server as well, but you have to be a mutual of mine to join. Anyway, this is Spacey, signing off, bye!